What's good, everyone? This is Terrance from Spoken Soul. We're just getting things moving. We got a lot of stuff in store for you guys. So, if you want to be part of the community, please be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so we can keep you up to date on everything we got going in the draft. Thanks, and we'll see you soon. Welcome back to Spoken Soul, home of the essential athlete. I'm Terrance, and as always, I'm here with Anthony. And today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is beneficial to all of us. And I'll start by leading with a little example. We're just coming off winter. I know I said we're just coming off winter. Well, we're well into spring right now. We're in May. But you know what happens during the winter? A lot of times, well, I'm not going to say recently. There were times right when October or November would hit where we would put the bike away and then focus solely on actually running. And we wouldn't look at a bike or touch a bike until probably May, right? But then when you first get back on that bike, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. So today what I want to do is I want to provide the community with 3 tips to balance out those training blocks, right? Typically, again, like I said, for us, winter was a heavy running block, and then spring will come. We'd switch to cycling, be heavy cycling, and then vice versa. But before we get to that, what I want to do is I want to talk about you for a second, because I know you just recently signed up for a race, and we are just coming off one of, well, I'm gonna imagine you just came off a heavy cycling block, because now since maybe 2 years we've been using Zwift, and so actually Zwift has kind of changed things for us, because
Zwift has changed the game. Shout out to Zwift too. Zwift, can we get an endorsement deal?
It changed the game from this perspective. We went from not touching the bike all winter to me primarily, mostly what I'm doing outside of, I have added in strength training, because that's very important. Strength training is very important. From not touching the bike to pretty much I ride at least 3 times a week during the winter. So tell me about this race. What made you decide to do this race now? And then let's talk about how your training has been going.
Well, first off, did Courtney tell you that? How you find out about that? Did I tell you that?
You told me.
Okay. All right. Cause shout out to Court. Caught me telling secrets. But what happened was, again, I always love the hustle. But I think as an athlete, you understand there's training and then there's actual racing. And the mindset of it
is different.
Makes you do certain different things. So just to give a little bit of history, the last time I've actually raced was I had a did not finish in the Ironman.
The Ironman, yeah.
And being as transparent as possible, I'm not sure what that did to me. Like I finished the race and everything, but I think it wasn't a did not finish, but it was that experience. Like that was a grueling experience. To have to, swim 1.1 miles, to have to bike 56 and then to run a half marathon. So I think physically and emotionally, that did something to me. So
I remember you training for that.
So it was almost like that season of what we did after we did the 11 or 12 half marathons. Like I was just out, I was out. So it's been about maybe 8 years, and they just kept flying by. I mean, we were training and doing everything else, but what brought that back is, some of it is, actually, you continually go to the races and you're like, oh man, I missed that. Like you're seeing someone cross the finish line. I don't give a damn what the time is, but you just seeing them cross the finish line, and then it's like that itch. You start getting that itch again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I know you remember this, but I used to have I was telling myself like, damn, I haven't kissed the bricks in a long time, and like I miss that, and I miss I miss that, and I also think, or what I learned from a psychological standpoint is, as much as I've trained and did all that, I probably wasn't doing what I could do because I didn't have a goal that I was pushing toward. I was
Yeah.
just doing it, and it was just for that. So I was like, you know what? I didn't want to wait to 10 years, and I also want to get back into the triathlon world. So from a base building perspective, my strength has always been the run. So I got to go back to the run. So I figured, if I could get that piece of it done, it could be a twofold thing where I could get back into the running piece of it from a solid perspective and see where I'm at, so that could at least still be my superpower and figure out and gauge what the other two are going to look like.
So you got this race coming up.
Yep.
You've been cycling all winter.
Yep.
What'd your legs feel like when you hit the road?
Well, the one good thing too is, and we talked about that in the last episode about the essential piece and about I'll call them micro workouts. My life is hectic, so I've always like the last a couple things. So I've been trying to secretly build back the base. So like matter of fact, last week was my first 1 year swim anniversary where I swam for like one time a week for 52. I'm proud of that too because I hate swimming. Like I hate it.
You do enough of it.
But you know what? But I know that okay, I got that base. And I knew okay if I had the swimming base piece to it, we shout out to Tempo T too because he converted me to Zwift, and I feel like that piece of it has helped me from a running perspective because my legs are solid. You know what I'm saying? Like my legs are solid, and then going back to the running piece, I really just have to work on the mechanics of it. The breathing aspect of it, the mental aspect of being on the road. Like that's and we talked about that before we started recording. The mental aspect of I got to carry this weight. You know what I'm saying? I got to carry this $190 for whatever amount of time and get comfortable with doing it. So that's.
Yeah. See, I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a mental aspect of it, but there's also a physical aspect of it too. The fact that you stay ready is beneficial for you. But what happens to some individuals, particularly if the winter they're focusing on a heavy training plan for running, and then as spring comes on, they get into cycling, they're going to feel it in their legs, right? So the question becomes, how do you avoid that, right? And cross-training is one of those things that I don't think people do enough of. Yep. And cross-training should be part of your regular training, right?
Yep.
But I think the biggest thing is, and I'll say this as tip number one. Tip number one is you got to avoid the drop-off. And what I mean by that is, again, don't drop one sport during a training block if you do it. So if you're training for a marathon, you have these heavy run blocks. Don't completely drop that cycling aspect of it. And the reason for that is this. If you think about it, right, your heart and your lungs, they don't care whether or not you're running or cycling. Right. That's going to be there, right? The cardio is going to be there. But when you start talking about, and you mentioned the mental aspect of this, when you start talking about from a physical perspective, your muscles, your joints, your tendons, they adapt to what it is that you're actually doing.
Right, and that's why, and you're right about that. That's why the drop off is not good because and I always tell people, and I, sorry to interrupt you, but I've always been a better runner off the bike. Like people struggle in triathlons. Like everybody struggles with the run. I never struggle with the run, but what I realized is the reason why I don't struggle off the run is because of the bike, my cross training on the bike. Like by the time, I get off the bike, my legs are warm and ready.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if I had, not utilized one or the other, then I wouldn't have a good run. And that's, again, I know it's like spoken soul, but that piece of it for the triathlon woke that part of me up to say, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like the front and the back of the legs, and vice versa. Even with the running piece, the running piece helps you to be stronger with your legs. So when you cycle, and you're right. Like when you find a good balance, I think that balance helps you in both arenas.
Yeah, and it's okay to mention triathlons on
Okay.
Spoken Soul.
Right.
The swim is silent
Yeah.
because we don't
Yeah,
because we don't do that.
Yeah,
But
swim is
listen, we're an open community.
No, I know.
We
I know.
welcome
But
everyone.
But I'm saying though, but those things, and I think even what you talked about too with, um, whatever that may be, whether it's, the strength training, like all that. I think to me, it's the totality of your hustle.
Yeah.
Like you got to put those little pieces in, for wherever you are, you know, and at whatever levels to get you to where you want to be, and understanding too and you're right with you said the balancing act. I'll say the juggling act. The juggling act of trying to fit them all in so that you don't drop one, so that the other one,
Yeah.
doesn't suffer from it. And I'll say it. We were talking beforehand. Excuse me. I will never go back. And we're going heavily into cycling season,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm either Friday or Tuesday is going to be like, once we jump back into cycling, is going to be my run day.
Yeah.
That's going to be my long. I mean, I can't do everything, and a great point that you make too, and I think we should point that out to athletes. A balancing act does not mean that you have to do everything. It means that you at some point in time you may have to scale back certain things. So when cycling season comes, the speed of my run may suffer a little bit because I may not be able to fit 2 runs in, and I may have to swap out that speed tempo run for that long slow distance run so that I can focus on the cycle piece. And then once the season goes back to the winter time, then I can revert back to, a more heavier focus on the running piece.
Yeah.
And then dial back the cycling.
This is where that minimum effective dosing comes in, right? So if you're training for a marathon, right? Throw in a nice, easy, 30-minute bike ride. If you're in middle of a heavy cycling block, 20-minute jog, nice and easy. So again, it's really about, you said it, juggling, but just making sure that you keep that balance there, right?
Base for both the base, whatever. I think the base for the non-dominant sport at that point.
Yeah.
Because the base is important. The base is, and I had lost my base because we had gotten really crazy on cycling, and and oh my God, it's so hard to get back. Like I have to say, like, it's taken literally like a year and a half to really get back to where it's like, okay, like it's second nature versus it's laborious.
Yeah.
And as a runner, it hurts because in your mind, I'm like I did 4 damn marathons. Like, this is bullshit.
Yeah. I remember, and this was a couple years ago, again, coming back or coming off, because there were some times from a cycling perspective where, I mean, we would go out and we would do, like when we would build up to a century, we do 60, 70, 80, 90, and then hit those 100 miles. And then I go for a run, and again, from a cardiovascular perspective, I was good. But my legs, I'm like, well, how come you ain't moving? How come you ain't moving the way that I know you actually can
in your
move?
head, you was like,
yeah.
Like, I'm a runner still, right?
Yeah. So that leads me to tip number 2. I think that you have to actually avoid the recovery run trap. And the reason I say that is because, for me, there's a bit of a myth behind the recovery run. And when I say myth, what I mean is, from a scientific perspective, or from a everyday enthusiast athlete perspective, a recovery run does not put you back into or doesn't put you in any of a better position than actually just resting, right?
I agree.
So and the reason why I say that is running is an eccentric movement. And what I mean by that is it doesn't make a difference how fast or how slow you're going. Your body's going through a process of tearing its muscles, absorbing that shock, and then rebuilding from it, right? So for me, the better approach would be rather than doing a recovery run, do a recovery ride.
I agree because it's less wear and tear. I agree with you 100%. I think that, and it's funny that you're saying that because normally if once I do, and it's funny. I mean, you can check Strava because Strava.
Yeah, you can check Strava. And listen, everyone's reality is if it ain't on Strava, you can.
It didn't happen. But if you check my stats, normally, and it used to be different. Like normally, like if you check my stats, like now, like my long runs are Sundays, and I normally will not go back to a run next. Normally, you'll see me like if we run on a Sunday, depending upon how grueling it is, I'll either take that Monday off, and if I don't take that Monday off, it'll be a ride.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I say this, again, experience provides you the opportunity to learn certain things because I used to get caught in the recovery run trap all the time. I remember running. I remember it was one half marathon in particular. It was one of Gary's, and I ran it faster than I was going to run it.
Was it the chocolate milk or something like that?
It wasn't the chocolate milk at the time. I think it was
Chili Willy.
No, because the chili. I don't do the chili willy.
Chili Willy.
Yeah, I don't do the chili willy.
December,
No, but I mean, the short of it was, the next day my legs was, I was like, I gotta go out here and I gotta do this recovery run. But at the time, I didn't understand that. Again, regardless of how fast you're going, each one of those steps, you're putting like 3 times your body weight on from a shock absorption perspective, and it didn't. I could have just rested. You know what I mean, and been in the same position. So, the benefit of cycling is, cycling is just concentric, right? And so
there's no pressure.
There's no pressure. You're spinning, and what it actually does is that pumping. It actually revitalizes. It pushes fresh blood into your actual legs, so you get that aspect of nutrients being pumped through your legs, which has an actual benefit to it.
And it loosens your muscles too. I have to say. I think, and again, all athletes are at different stages where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a middle-aged person, a middle-aged athlete. So for me, it's about longevity. It's about, okay, I want to get from this workout to that workout, injury-free, while also making gains with what I'm trying to do. And again, a lot of it's about being strategic. And you talk about the balancing act also. And I think one thing we should talk about is how important it is for rest. I think a lot of us think, I was talking to Courtney and I was telling him how, Court likes to go. And I was telling Court, I'm like, nah, man, like for me, at 55, like I'm good with 4 workouts a week. Like that's good for me,
I'm gonna ask you a question with those 4 workouts.
Okay.
Is one of those strictly stretching because you should put it to 5?
Yes. And again, like you talk about about how experience teaches you different things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm still tweaking it to kind of find like where my sweet spot is. But my swim day is normally a swim and stretch day.
I know. We said we can talk about swim, but I said it was silent. That swim stuff is silent.
but that's like my stretch day, and the not really like total workout, but I'll do like strength and stretch.
Yeah.
And then but like for the 4 workouts, normally One has to be a swim, one has to be a run, one has to be a bike, and then that fourth one is either a bike or a run.
Yeah. So what I've done is I've separated out strength training and stretching.
Yep.
I dedicate one day to complete stretching. And that's just to put my body in the proper condition, whether it be from a hip perspective, from a hamstring perspective, from an upper body perspective. I dedicate one day to completely stretching because, again, when I get to whatever the other exercise is, I'm ready. And then just going back to the whole recovery run piece and that trap, when I say swap out the recovery run for a bike ride, very, very low impact, high cadence, probably around 90 revolutions per minute, but easy 30-minute bike ride.
Yeah. And I think you make a great point too. I think there's a misconception. Like I got like a bunch of my buddies who I grew up with, they ride and they have this misconception like that we're like beasts. Oh, I don't want to ride with you. And I'm like, dude, like, first off, I'm not the standard. Like, you got the wrong guy. I mean, like, you see these little stats, but like, I mean, for the most part, I mean, unless we're running on a Sunday, dude, I ride 30-minute blocks, and those blocks have, different strategies, whether it be like you said, the cadence.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll be, like, shout out to Bernie on Zwift too. That's my man. So, I don't only hang with Bernie.
He's
I hang with Bernie.
He's naming bots on Zwift.
Bernie's my man. And I joined this crew, Bikealicious, because it just sounded funny. But there's some, I normally get in there, and it's either, I get in, get that tempo thing in, or sometimes what I learned from you two is, or I'll get a section that is climbing.
Yeah.
So that'll build the strength in my legs. And I have to say, when you do those things and it's, it's strategic, you're going to get the return on investments, but also understanding that, you can't go hard all the time. I think that's a misconception that a lot of people, non-athletes, and especially athletes that they have too, and I can say from me and you were texting the other day, from a bounce back perspective, there's a hidden or unseen benefit of training in zone 2.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I found that even yesterday working and doing speed work, I was like, damn, that zone 2 stuff did some wonders. Like
the key is to make sure that you're training in zone 2 and not zone 1.
No, you're right. No, don't.
I'm messing with you.
No, you're right. But like right on the cusp of zone, like on zone 2, and and again, it's about being an educated hustler too. Understanding that, I think when Court and I were running the other day, I was telling him, I said, listen, because he's much younger than us. So I'm like, dude, I'm gonna be 55, man. And I'm not making excuses for that. I said, but I want to still be doing this at 65.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I understand that my body doesn't recover the same way that it used to when it was 45.
Yeah.
So, knowing what you can do and what you can't do, and also understanding that at this stage, for me, like, and for some of us as well, like, hell, I've gotten medals, I've gotten PRs. I'm beyond that stage. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking of beyond, to be able to hustle and to be able to do everyday regular things that people, as they get older, have to do. And I think, especially in American society, we've lost focus with that piece of it.
Yeah, there's one thing that you got to make sure that you add in there that you got to be able to do, right? Because we can go out and do a nice, easy zone 2. Hell, we can do zone 1 sometimes. But when that person tries to blow by us, we got to show them, hey, listen.
Yeah, we do.
We might be taking it easy out here.
Yeah.
But game recognized game.
Yep.
And last time I checked, I can move.
Yep. And I think that, we did a great job with that last season. I have to say we did. I think honestly, for me, and we talked about this a little bit before, like, I'm having more fun than I've had in a long time, like, just, enjoying it. I think for a while, a long time, for me, it was I was chasing medals, chasing PRs. But like now it's like we get together, laugh, have fun, whatever. And in between that too, we still put in work.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that to this season. For us to be able to do, and we've adapted. Like we adapted, like every now and then, even with the rides. During the rides, like our rides aren't always chill. Sometimes it's chill and. What's the new saying? They push the button.
Push the button.
They push the
sometimes,
button.
sometimes you gotta
Yep.
push the button.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. And I think again, it's with the balancing act, but and not understanding that you don't have to always be on 10.
Yeah, and that's a great transition to tip number 3 when we talk about maintaining balance when switching from whether it be a heavy cycling block to a heavy running block, and that is resetting mental baselines.
Yes.
What I mean by that is this. If you go into a situation where you've been training for a marathon and you're at that point where, you know what, I need to now switch gears, and you get back on the bike, your expectation should not be that when you get on that bike, you're going to perform like you did when you were going through those heavy cycling training blocks. You got to be able to let that ego go, and you got to be able to build that base up again. Again, adaptability from the body's perspective plays a huge role when you start talking about those things. So mentally, you have to be able to say, listen, I know I did that a couple months ago, but yesterday's price ain't today's price.
Amen.
I gotta work back up to where I was.
Listen, you're preaching the gospel right now, because I think that's just in general where you are in hustling. I think like even yesterday, like I was humbled, or I am humbled, because I'm like I'm like, damn, like back in the day, like. It was back in my day, but we remember when
back in my day,
when like I can remember a time when I was dropping 8-minute miles and I was barely sweating, but you have to come to the realization, like, okay, you haven't been running that much, and it may get there, but you like you said, you have to humble yourself to say, okay, well, I'm gonna be okay with 9, and then if it gets to that point, and understanding that it takes time to get to those particular things, even if you're not going from a heavy to this to that, and reshaping your mindset as you age, particularly, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't do. I think people thinking, like, again, what you used to be able to do at 20, it may not be the same at 50. It may not be the same at 70. I think that's how a lot of people get injured, or they get dissuaded from the sport, because it's like, I can't do what I used to do, but it's like, what can you do now?
Yeah, and I think that it's important, particularly when because we're talking about switching these blocks. You have to adopt a day one mentality, right? And the easiest way to do that, if you're talking about the bike, do a fresh FTP test. See where you are today, right? And then you base everything off where you are today. If it's for running, do a baseline 5K. Again, from an ego perspective, I think we tend to rely, or we tend to have trouble letting that ego piece go, thinking about old PRs and where you were yesterday. If you adopt the day one mentality, you look to say, okay, well, this is where I am. And here's what it's really going to do for you. You get a true sense of where you are. And if you understand, or what your goal is, now okay, well, you get a sense of, this is the work that I have to do to see if I can get back to where that was. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
That's growth, whether it be from the perspective of getting older, because I notice, you've been talking a lot about this getting older. I talk about mature. But or if it's just switching from, one training block to another. And I like the fact that, I know I'm messing with you, but I like the fact that you bring in the age to it, because again, these tips aren't just for switching between blocks. You use them where they can be of use. And I think it's important to not put yourself in a position where you're operating off an old manual when new technology has come out
Listen,
and you got an opportunity to
yes,
readjust.
You're absolutely right about that, and it's funny you're saying that because every now and then I got a battle with the two egos on my shoulder where it's like shit, I ran this, and even now coming back on the comeback or the bounce back trail to a 5K, understanding that, and again, I don't know how it's gonna go, but understanding that okay, I have this goal, but I know regardless of whatever the goal is, I put the training blocks in. Now, who knows? I mean, I know at least I should at least be where that baseline is.
Yeah.
And now if it exceeds that baseline, that's okay. And maybe we can we reevaluate that after the fact. But I know, again, for example, yesterday, I went out, I did the 4. It was a test because I wanted to see what I could do, and I was surprised. I was like they said I did like one of the quarters was like at like 8:02, and the fastest I got up to was like 7:13. I was like,
You was like, ooh.
I was like, I ain't seen him in a minute.
Yeah.
But I also understand that, okay, that's a baseline. That shows, okay, maybe you're somewhere in that. But at least you know where your baseline is and like you said, where you have to grow. And if you can gradually get there, without being mentally burnt out or getting injured or whatever else, again, you're right. When you put your ego, and I think for me, that's the most important thing that you said in this particular episode is, hustling, you got to learn to put your ego and check your ego.
Yeah.
Understand that,
and we all struggle with it. But
no, we do.
yeah.
No, we do. We do. Listen, I can be as transparent as possible, because again, you have good days, you have bad days.
Yeah.
I can remember there's days that, we're out there on the road and riding, I'm like, I just don't got it. You know what I'm saying? And then there's days I'm out there and I'm like,
like, what got in the ant?
I'm like, I'm up in this piece.
What got in the ant?
Where I do the opposite of what I'm normally doing. Where normally I'm laying back in the cut and I'm out here pushing the button. And I know they're like, what's up with this dude? So, understanding that, sometimes you just take what your body gives you and you appreciate what it is at that point in time. Because everything that you think that you plan to do doesn't always come out to be what it is. And also, and especially on race day. You remember that saying we used to have to say, anything can happen on race day.
Yeah, yep.
Anything can happen on race day. Anything. Anything can happen. But understanding too, at the end of the day, it's that gift. And understanding, like you said, if you balance out not just your hustle, but with your life, all those things, you can do all those things together.
Yeah.
And it's important. I think, we all talk about the hustling perspective from a physical perspective, but for me, it's a mental health thing. It's one of those things where, we're talking about the balancing act and avoiding the drop of, but for me, the hustle is a balancing act on how I can balance, my mental health, the things that you got to go through every day, as a father, a husband, a person, in your career and how you put that block into it and how sometimes you need that piece just so it can make sure that you're operating on a regular playing level and you're not out here trying to kill nobody. So, so it's so it's one of those things that, I think, and again, everything is all circular, but I think, like you said, like the balancing act is important, not just in hustle, but also in life. And we talk about life and sport here.
Yeah. I think it's very important to actually to bring that in. Also to point out, again, what we're trying to do with this community is we're trying to provide some useful information, whether it be for running or cycling and silently swim. But at the same time, when the opportunity comes up to talk about life, we mold that in there. Again, this is not one of those situations where it's rigid, this is what it is, right? Sometimes things bleed over into areas that it makes sense for us to actually have a conversation about. And when that comes up, we're going to have that conversation. There is one thing that I want to just go back, and it has nothing to do with anything that we talked about today, but it's something that I mentioned in the ecosystem episode, and I was incorrect, and I'm not sure if you even know this, but Johnny from Johnny's Place has moved.
Johnny's on EP no more?
He's not in East Providence anymore, so that 11 Baker Street is not the correct address. He is now in Riverside. I think it's 892 Willett Ave.
Willett, that's still EP though.
Well, I mean, actually, it's closer because once you go over Riverside is that first. You take Veterans Memorial, that exit. Yeah. You just keep going down there.
Oh, okay.
And that actually ends up turning into, it turns into Pawtucket Ave, but then it turns into Willard Ave.
So you must have been over there to bring your bike there.
Nah, no. So what happened was,
what happened was,
I haven't made it there yet, but I have to go there.
Yeah.
And so Sandy told me, and I didn't even realize. She goes, "Oh yeah, well Johnny's is, he might be closed right now." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "He's moving." And so I texted him, and that's when he's like, "Nah," he says, "I got my own spot now." He says he gave me the address and he's open, so it's Monday through Friday. I think 10 to 6 or something like that.
So what do he mean by his own spot? The other spot wasn't.
Well,
his?
you know how that building where he was in before, it wasn't. There were like 4 different places in there. Right. He was on the back side, but then it was like an insurance place and an attorney. And so what I'm imagining is now it's just an individual building. Okay. And I was going to go there on Friday because Sandy has to bring her bike, her trainer, down there to get tuned up. And I want to talk to him.
Tune her up?
Huh?
I mean, you tune your trainer up?
Oh, yeah. He did mine last year.
I'll be tuning my trainer up.
Yeah, but listen, again, we had this conversation about maintaining your equipment.
I do. I mean, I oil it, I clean it. I mean, shit.
Oh goodness, yeah. So, so Johnny's not at 11 Baker Street. I believe it's matter of fact. Before I give the wrong address out, because now I'm getting way off the life topic here, but I do want to get out there. Because Johnny is, I want to talk to him about, it's 982 Willard Ave, Riverside. Okay. And Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. But no, I want to talk to him because I think I want to look at getting, Trek had us, I don't know if they're still on sale. I might try to get out there at some point, a 3D printed seat. Well, because of my back. Okay. Right? And so the idea is, because I have the split seats, but this is supposed to be the flex in the actual seat prevents you from having to slide back and forth, which is better from what the research that I've done if you have like a protruding disc and your back like I have.
All right. So they print your booty?
Not the print your... So, to summarize...
I got to know about that technology. No.
To summarize, it's a 3D print. It's the seat that's 3D. Okay, it's not printed based off your butt.
Okay, because again,
it's just a 3D printed seat.
Listen, we can make a ton of money off. We can make a ton of money off it. So maybe we could invent something where you know how you go in and they put your feet down and then they make a mold of your feet. Yeah, we can make one with a 3D printed. We can sit on it and mold your butt.
Sometimes life happens and you get information that you didn't think you were going to get. You thought you came here to get information about cycling, running in the community, and you're getting information about 3D printed butts. Yeah. So to sum up, I think that's a great way to transition to the end. To sum up, when we start talking about that switching between those blocks, there are 3 tips that'll help you maintain that balance. Number 1, avoid the drop off. Don't drop on sport just to focus on the actual other. Number 2, don't get caught in that recovery trap. If you're in a heavy running cycle, right? For the recovery, do a nice, easy bike ride. You can switch it for the bike ride too. If you're doing heavy cycling, do a nice, easy jog. And then lastly, we all struggle with this, but you got to reset your mental baselines when it comes down to what it is you're actually doing from that switch, whether it's in life and you're getting older or if you're going between a heavy run block and a heavy cycling block. As always, we are Spoken Soul. Thanks for sitting with us. In the meantime, keep those wheels turning, keep your feet moving, and we'll see you on the next episode.